Caroline P. from Maryland, the Fireline Group.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm an alcoholic. Caroline. How's the sound, Ron? Sounds good? All right. Before I do anything, let me just pause together and just take a moment and acknowledge the presence of your higher power. All right. Okay, Caroline, I'm an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date. It's May 5th of 2016. I have a sponsor. She knows she's my sponsor. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. People say that in Baltimore, Maryland. I don't know if people say that in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Like, do they say that? Like, oh, they know that they're my sponsor? Is that something you guys heard? Yeah, that's like a weird thing to say, you know? Because my experience with sponsorship is that it's very intimate. It's a seriously intimate and vulnerable relationship that I have with this woman in my life, and for her to not know that she was sponsoring me would mean that we would not have a relationship, right? So, and what I want to say is that it does me no good. It really doesn't help me to have a sponsor by name. You know, I guess that would help me like get my parents off my back or something, or like have something to say when somebody in a meeting says, "Do you have a sponsor?" and they say, "Oh yeah, like it's so and so." But like, I'm not gonna get any recovery from that. And sobriety is certainly not guaranteed from a sponsor by name. Or lack of one in general. And the sponsor, in my experience, like is not the power here, but the purpose of sponsorship, right, is to have that person to guide you through our 12 steps because they've done it, and connect you with that power, right? Like that's the purpose of these 12 steps, is to get in connection, like with a new power. And if you're new here and you're like, why? Like, I hope I can explain that tonight. Like that would be the goal, I think, is to articulate like why it is we do this. Like, because like when I arrived, and I didn't arrive in Alcoholics Anonymous, sometimes I have to choose my words carefully, because like I'm here by no virtue at all, none, still today in this moment. Like not here in Alcoholics Anonymous by any kind of virtue. There are all kinds of beautiful things I get to experience as a result of this program, but like the reality of my life is that I'm an alcoholic. Right, and I'm here because I have alcoholism, and Alcoholics Anonymous is a way of life for me that allows me to be sober. And I'm not here by any virtue, right? Like I didn't make a decision to go to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. What I did was go on a 9-month-long bender where I didn't draw a sober breath for about 9 months and became suicidal and did decide to try to take my own life, and then unwillingly and involuntarily went to the psychiatric hospital, right, where they did not care if I wanted to go there or not, and was in a community room just coloring and stuff, and Alcoholics Anonymous just showed up in that room, right? Like I knew that there were things going on in that hospital, like there were groups for this and groups for that, and AA is coming this time, and I was hiding in my room. Right? Like I never made a decision to even attend the meeting, right? You guys just came to me and I just didn't leave, you know? So like no virtue in my story at all. So I do have a sponsor. I'm active in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't like to say, maybe this will change later on, I don't know. In this moment, I don't like to say that I've been through the 12 steps because I just feel like it implies that it's something that we finish. And that's not my experience here. It also implies that I've completed all my amends, and that is not the truth, right? Like I still have, I think I have like 40 amends still on my list. And I'll just be very honest with the group, my enthusiasm for completing that has like, whoop, so maybe if I say it out loud, maybe that'll go back up and I will finish that list. So I'm active in the 12 steps. It's really, you know, for a long time I was just rushing in Alcoholics Anonymous to just get there, like wherever that is, you know, like, oh, once I, you know, finish the steps, once I have 2 years sober, once I get out of this relationship, once I get in this relationship, like whatever it is, like just trying to get to a destination. It's not my experience currently, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's actually some growth, that this is really like a way of life. and it's tools for living that allow me to live sober, and reasonably contented, like a lot of the time. You know, I'm not going to sit here and stand here and lie to you and say that I feel like happy like every day. Like it's just not, it's not been my like sobriety trajectory, you know, but like I have had like real contentedness, and also like long periods of time of like freedom from my mind, you know, and when my mind is really loud and active, like I have these spiritual tools. Right? It's not that I've ascended into this is what I thought was going to happen to me, I guess. Like I was like, I'm going to ascend into this level of spirituality where like I don't get afraid anymore, right? Or like I'm not resentful anymore, ever. Like that the steps have cured that from me. And we have like tools for that stuff, but my experience is that those things crop up, you know, and I have this spiritual set of tools to live and to deal with those things so that I don't have to stay in that resentment. Right, and I don't have to like before, like fear dictated my my life. Like this is I don't enjoy speaking in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? But what's happened to me here is like you guys have shown me how I can walk through it. Right, it's not that I'm not getting afraid anymore. It's that you guys have given me the tools and like shown me yourselves like with your experience and like I don't know, given me everything that I need, like in this book and my phone calls, right, to have the courage to do the things that I'm afraid of, and then find out that I lived, you know, like I really think I'm gonna die if I do some of the stuff that I'm afraid of, and I'll get into details about that later. I usually feel like that with like a big amend. I'm like, if I do this, like I think I will die, you know, and like it's a real thing for me. So let's see. So I have a home group. It's a firing line group of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think I said that. It's from Baltimore. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I want to thank my friend Robert for coming. He drove an hour to see me. He's a member of the home group too, and we have something really special there. And I think you guys have it here too. And that's awesome. Like I love to see groups with enthusiasm. And what I see in my home group is like it's like this group of people where you know, we're vulnerable with each other. Like for the most part, like I know what's going on in their lives, like, and I share with them what's going on in my life. You know, I've made amends to people at my home group. There have been days I've showed up to my home group, and there was one day, I don't remember if you were there, Robert, for this day. You might have been. And I was like trying to unlock the door, and the door to the church is like really sticky, like it's a pain, and like you can't quite get it right, and I'm trying to do it, and I'm pulling on it, and I'm wearing these like high-heeled shoes or whatever because I just came from work, and I like pulled on the door and the key comes out and I fall down and I fall into my home group member's, my friend Cleo's arms, and I just start crying. You know, it's like, and that was like this year, you know? So like, and really like, that's like a beautiful thing, like to be able to show up at my home group that way and be like, hey, like I had a rough day and like, this is what's going on, right? And to be met with like so much love. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And like, you know, aside from all that like fellowship and community that we have there, like I really believe we're an effective group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we care a lot about carrying this message to newcomer. Like that's our real purpose. And we get to love each other while we do it. And it's really, really cool. You know, I never had those kinds of relationships in sobriety until this home group, really. So got a home group, got a sobriety date, got a sponsor. I sponsor other people. Am I missing anything? I don't know. Those are important things. You know, I think I begin most of the time when I speak, you know, with those facts, right, of my experience that I have a sponsor, I sponsor others, I'm active in the 12 steps, I have a home group and a sobriety date. And the reason for that is that my experience is that those things are not optional. You know, none of those things are like extra credit sobriety stuff, right? Like I need it. I need to be active in all of those areas. And I believe too for myself, like in this moment where I stand, like if I'm really active and sincerely seeking, right, in all of those areas, like having an honest relationship with a sponsor, actively sponsoring other people, active in a home group, right, like I'm going to be all right, you know? And what I mean by that is like I'm going to stay sober. Right? Like it doesn't mean that I'm gonna like feel fantastic all the time, but like we are like there are promises all throughout this book, like we're promised sobriety, but I've got to be willing to do this work, and I've got to be willing to do a whole bunch of stuff that I don't want to do, and a bunch of stuff that I'm definitely afraid of. It's crazy. It's a tall order, you know? Like what we ask of you here in Alcoholics Anonymous is like not just a little bit, like it's a lot, right? Like if you really, like it's a lot. And my experience is I'm doing it out of no virtue. So maybe I'll just explain that a little bit better. But before I do that, I guess I want to share a little bit about like my first drunk and what that was like for me. And even before that, I guess I want to share with you a little bit about what sobriety was like for me, you know, before I had my first drunk. And I was like, the first time I had my first real drunk, like I had drank a couple of times before this, but I don't remember like getting this drunk, I guess. Like my brother and I, my brother's also sober, so we had a good time for a while. We would, there was this like handle of vodka in the basement that my brother and I would drink off of for like a couple of years until high school when I really realized that I liked to drink, right? And so I guess I was like 14, and I was a sophomore in high school, and around this time in my life, I'm just really just becoming like aware of myself. I remember like I went to a new high school as a freshman, and I guess it wasn't like I didn't know anybody. I probably knew at least like 30 people there, you know, like that's a lot. Like that's a big chunk of people in high school to know going into it, but it was like a new school. I didn't know most of the people, and I was so afraid, right? And I just intuitively knew already that like the people at this school were like better than me. Like even before going there, like before stepping foot in there for the first time, I just knew that they were smarter and cooler, and like I was somehow on the outside of it, and I didn't quite know what the thing was that they all seemed to like have in common, right? And I don't know, you know, none of this is really real. Like this is just what's going on in my head. But that's what you know what I mean? It felt real to me at the time. And I remember like I like broke out like just this terrible acne like the first week of high school out of just like so much fear. It was like the first time I had like a physical response to like what was going on internally, that like my stress and anxiety was like evidence like on my face, and you know, that doesn't help, right? Like that makes it worse. And I'm walking around just afraid of everyone, and you know, I think yeah, just like freshman and sophomore year really is when like it just kind of developed into itself. But just I had these ideas about myself, and they were all really stemmed from these ideas that like I wasn't enough, you know. And I don't know that this is even important, because sometimes my mind will attach to it, and I'm like, well, why are you like that, you know? And I don't know that it's important. Like I don't know if I was like, you know, born that way, or if I have these like insecure tendencies, or if I had, you know, I had some experiences, right, in elementary school that, you know, I molded, that like kind of molded these ideas or whatever, but they were there, right? I had these ideas that like I just wasn't enough, and enough of like anything that I thought you might value, right? So like I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not, you know, not attractive enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not disciplined enough, right? Not hardworking enough, I'm not, God, I still struggle with this one, like I'm not like organized enough. Like it's such low self-esteem for little things like that in high school, like just like my locker being a mess, and like you know, my car being a mess. My car is still a mess, by the way. But like, just like so much, like I was just insecure about all of that. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not clever enough. I'm not interesting enough. Not artistic enough. Not athletic enough. Like I was looking around at my peers and like seeing the traits that were valued by my peers and like by the adults in our lives. And I could acknowledge that like I might have some of it, but like I know I didn't have enough of it, enough to just, and by enough I guess just like enough to like to feel like I was like among you, you know. I always felt just like below everybody else, and I don't know, it'd be interesting to ask some of the adults in my life at the time who aren't my parents, because they will never be able to be objective, but like what, because I don't believe that like I was exuding that, you know. Like what I was trying to do was like fit in with the popular crowd, right, and like really making moves to befriend these popular people, and that's what I was doing that night when I got invited to that party, right, when I was a sophomore, and this was like a senior party, and I had made some very direct moves to get invited to this party. Like I'm very calculated, like when it comes to getting something that I want. And really what it is like, it's not that I want, it's like I think I need it. You know what I mean? I think I need to be invited to this party to be okay. Like I think I need to be a part of this like popular group of people to be okay. Because like if you know, maybe if they accept me, then like they won't know that like really I'm a fraud, and like you guys shouldn't like me anyway, and like deep down like I'm unlovable at my core, you know? Like that's what's really, like I don't have, and I want to say too, it's like I never had the words to articulate any of this until Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? I never, it wasn't until like really a deep dive in his 12 steps that like these things have been revealed, you know. At the time it just feels like scary and confusing, you know. And so I'm a sophomore in high school and I find myself at this party that I very tactfully got invited to. And I'm afraid there too, go figure, you know, because now I'm in this like social environment and everybody else seems comfortable. Like I'm sure they weren't, but like everybody else looked comfortable and I was scared. And I found something to drink. I don't remember what it was. I remember we were playing Flip Cup, and I remember this like, alcohol was like everything to me, you know, like it really like, it relieved me of everything, you know. It was like kind of beautiful, you know. Like I don't want to romanticize it, but like it kind of was. Like I walked around with this like tightness in my chest, you know, that just feels like it's like somebody who has like an air pump and they're like pumping air into like a bike tire. This is what I picture, and they're just like pumping air, but it's like going into my chest, and I'm just like, and it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and I feel like I can't breathe, and at any moment it's going to burst, right? So that's a sober existence for Caroline in high school. And I remember that, you know, after whatever amount of drinks I had that night, it just softened, you know, like that tightness in my chest, just like it was just lifted away. And my, you know, my shoulders, like I'm the kind of, when I'm afraid, man, like I'm like jaw clenching, like my shoulders are up here, like it's a physical experience. Like my palms are sweaty, my stomach is in knots, you know, like all of those physical things, like of my sobriety, right, just got lifted with the drink, like right away. You know, where I physically didn't feel like sick anymore. Like that's pretty cool. That was great. Like, you know, it really like my fear and like anxieties like make me sick, you know? And like alcohol completely relieved me of that physical pain. And then further, you know, I told you I'm having these ideas constantly about how like I'm not enough, and how that manifests is like I'm constantly thinking about like what you think of me, and I'm constantly thinking about like how it looks if I say this instead of that, right? I'm constantly like weighing options in my head, and it's all around like how I can look and appear like the best and like most attractive to you. So I've got this hamster wheel of a mind that, you know, is also telling me like that I'm not good enough and I'll never be good enough, and these people don't really like you anyway, and you know, this is a pity invite, and if you hadn't sat with them at lunch, like you manipulated them into, you wouldn't, you know, it's like my head is just constantly, it's insatiable, and it's constantly beating me up. And you know, I wish, like, I mean, I guess I don't want to be like grandiose, but like I don't have the kind of mind that's like pumping me up. It's not like, oh my gosh, you're great, like look at you, you got invited to this party, people like you. Like no, like it's just constantly tearing me down. And alcohol completely relieved me of that. Like that hamster wheel of a mind, it just like, it went away. You know, it's not like, it's almost hard, like, I don't know if you guys have had like, you probably have them sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, like other obsessions, you know what I mean, like in sobriety, right? And it's like your mind is just so attached to like whatever it is. Like a really easy one that we might all relate to is like whatever like person I'm dating, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, why haven't they texted me? Like it's been 4 hours, or like, you know, like they don't really like me, or they're gonna break up with me, like whatever. It's like these like you know, like racing thoughts, and like they, for me, like it can attach to like a lot, like almost anything. Like my mind can attach to, like it is always looking for a problem, find a problem, and then obsess about it. You know, like that's my mind. And it's like when I'm blocked by all of that, I'll just go back to my experience with the drink. Like the drink like completely relieved all of that for me. So like when that's gone, like in the absence of those racing thoughts and like all of my fear and my physical discomfort, right, I'm left with this like authentic version of myself. Like it's this weird thing, you know, like drinking for me just like turned me into like who I am. And what it did is like it allowed me to be who I am with you. Sincerely, like with sincerity, like with the absence of fear of what you might think about me. And so what that looked like that night was like I could, you know, I was high school, like whatever, like the popular music really matters, you know what I mean? So like I always felt like I had to know what the popular songs were. Like this happened to me at a wedding earlier this year actually, where like everybody was like singing along to this song on the dance floor, and I've never heard this song. You know what I mean? I was like, I've never heard this song in my life, and like felt a little bit out of place. And I was like, you know what, this is funny. Like, this reminds me of like, because I tend to share this when I speak, but it's like I didn't care about that stuff when I was drinking, right? I didn't have to pretend to know the songs that you like and like pretend to like them even if I didn't, you know? And I didn't have to, I wasn't ashamed of the music that I liked, you know? Like, we think we had like iPods back then, so like I could like put my iPod on shuffle, you know, and not be like, you know, that's like pretty intimate still. Like, I still think that's an intimate thing to do, is to like put your music on shuffle for like a group of people, like knowing that everybody has different preferences, and like knowing that I have stuff on there that I probably am embarrassed of a little bit still. Like, I could do that when I'm drunk because I don't care, right? I don't care what you think about it. Like, I like it. Like, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. You know, I could make jokes. Like, I could never make jokes sober because I was constantly like, I'm like, what if it's not funny? They're gonna look at me weird. You know, like, I'm not capable of doing anything like that. Like, further, it's like I didn't have to laugh at your joke if it wasn't funny. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the kind of girl that's like, oh, I'll just like I need you to like me so bad, you know, that I'll like, it's so dishonest. Like, I'll tell you you're hilarious when you're not, you know? And so I didn't have to do any of that night when I was drinking. I was just this like authentic version of myself, really. And there was this guy I had a big crush on. My brother's, he was a grade above me. So this guy that was always at my house growing up and everything, a big crush on him, right? And he's at this party, because now we go to the same high school. And I like go right over to him and like confess my love for him, and he's like not interested, you know what I mean? He's just like, no thank you. Like, I'm sure it's like, I was such a sloppy drunk, like, and like always like hanging off of some guy, you know? So I was like hanging off of this guy, and he was uninterested, and like I was okay, you know what I mean? Like, in my drunken state, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, but you know what? There'll be another one, right? Like, on to the next, right? Like, if I do something like that sober, it's like I think I might die. Like, really? Like, if I tell somebody like, oh my god, like just that, ooh, I was like, ooh, it's so cringy, right? Like, and just that, like, because what it really means for me is like, because I'm so insecure, right? And the way that I told you, like I already told you, I don't think I'm enough. So like, for me to tell somebody that I have a crush on them and for it to not be reciprocated, like what that really means to me is like, oh my god, he knows the truth, like I'm unlovable, right? It's like so much, I'm putting all of that pressure on the people around me to like build me up, right? In a way, because like I'm so insecure, like I need you to like me. Right, but when I'm drunk, I'm like, on to the next one. You know what I mean? It's such a healthy perspective. Like, I hope to adopt that in dating. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, that one didn't work out, there'll be another one. My sponsor says there's one on every corner, like, and there is. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not that serious. Anyway, so I have this, like, amazing experience with alcohol, and it wasn't until coming to Alcoholics Anonymous that it was pointed out to me that, you know, that was nothing short of a spiritual experience, right? That like for drinking for an alcoholic, and in my experience, like just entirely, everything was the same, right? On the outside for me, right? It was the same girl, like, right? Same girl, same body, same family, same grades, same athletic ability, like played on the same sports team, same group of friends. Like none of that stuff changed when I drank, right? What did change is like I had a complete change in my perspective, right, as a result of the drink, where suddenly like I was enough, right, and it didn't have anything to do with any of that stuff that I thought it did, I guess, you know. Gosh, I think it's just so, like I cling to these ideas in sobriety and I guess in my drinking and throughout, just like when I you know, if I am skinny enough, then I'll be happy. If I'm in that relationship, then I'll be happy. When I make this amount of money, then I'll be happy, right? Clinging to these ideas, but you know, in those moments of like drunkenness, right, it's like none of that mattered, and I was just okay. You know, and that's like kind of the goal here, right? And that's why, like, when I met with my sponsor for the first time, like she outlined that to me, right? That drinking for an alcoholic is a spiritual experience, and my experience with alcohol is that maybe I'll articulate a little bit of this, but you know, eventually it turned on me, right? It's like it wasn't producing that like overwhelming, like euphoric experience that it did for me in the beginning. You know, I started drinking when I was like 14, I guess, like unless you count those sips off the vodka bottle or whatever. If you count that, then it's 12. And you know, I got sober when I was 23, and this is a progressive illness, right? Meaning that it gets worse over time. And that's what happened to me. Eventually, excuse me, it's a couple of phases. Like, I feel like at first it was just really fun, right? I'm getting wasted at all these parties. And like, I forgot to mention, I like threw up all over everybody at that party where I got so drunk and like flirted with I told that guy I had a crush on him, everything. Like, I threw up everywhere. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm not even embarrassed about that, really. I'm like, whatever, it's just what happens when you party. Like, it's really a price I'm willing to pay. Like, I'm like, I'll do like, I will go to any lengths, right, to continue to drink. Like, and whatever the consequences are, frankly, I'm just willing to accept them because like, I need to drink. So I eventually crossed into this phase where like I'm beginning to have some consequences that I do care about, right, as a result of my drinking, and it becomes clear that, you know, because like I don't like fighting with my family. You know, I would do things like I would flirt with my friends' boyfriends, right, when I was drunk. It's like it's not my character truly, right? It's like I do things like that that I didn't want to do, you know, and I kind of got, and this is like around the time I was in college, I guess, I like really wanted to just control my drinking. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I even really wanted to cut back. I just wanted to cut back on the consequences that were coming from my drinking. Like, I just didn't want people to be mad at me anymore. You know, I didn't want to fight with my friends anymore. I cared about school. Like, I was really enthusiastic about like the subjects that I was studying in school, but I couldn't seem to show up for it in the way that I wanted to. You know, I actually just made, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Okay, this is good. I'll say it out loud. I have to text one of my college professors for an amend. But I made a really, really cool amend to a professor from college like 2 months ago. Like, the kindness of some of these people like is so cool. Like, so cool. And I'll tell you about that actually, because this was I was really deeply ashamed of this. And it became clear to me around this time that once I started, like, I really couldn't stop. You know, that once I started, like, it was on and I needed more. And I was aware of that for years before I wanted to be sober. You know what I mean? Like, I really knew that once I started drinking that I was going to drink and that I wasn't just going to have a couple. And frankly, I was just willing to accept the consequences. And there was this internship that I was accepted into, right? And I told you I'm not enough of anything, right? And I'm definitely not smart enough for this internship. And like my roommate at the time, Audrey, she's like still one of the smartest people I know, like if not the smartest person I know. She's so smart. She's a surgeon in New York City, and she blows me away today. And I knew she was brilliant back then. You know, she was my roommate, and she was applying for this internship. And I was like, well, if Audrey's applying, like, you might as well not apply. You know what I mean? Like, as long as that's the kind of thing Audrey does, like, you're not good enough for that. And I applied anyway, and I got in. Okay? And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got into this internship. And we were required, really the bulk of the internship was participating in like some hospital observations, and in order to go in the hospital, you have to get a TB test done, like among like, you know, have your vaccinations and all that stuff. And if you've ever had a TB test, you go and they like expose you, like, I'm not a doctor, or I don't work in the medical field, so like just bear with me on these words, but like they like rub something on you, right, on your arm, and then and like what I understand is like they expose you to it a little bit, right, and then you go back, right, you have to go back 3 days later and get it read, right, and like that's how they determine if you tested positive or negative to the TB. And what would happen to me, right, is I would go and I would get the first part of that test done, right? I would go and I would be exposed to the stuff and I would start drinking, right? And I couldn't make it back, right? Because all I could do once I start drinking is have another and have another and another, and I drink through this stuff, right? And I just got to, it was kind of tricky. Like, it took me a minute to figure out like what the amend was for with this professor, because I was like, am I just embarrassed about this, and do I just have regret? And I realized that, like, you know, I took a spot, I got kicked out, right? So I got kicked out of this internship because I failed to meet the requirements to participate in it. And, you know, I told this woman, I was like, you know, I took up a spot in this competitive internship that, like, somebody who was able to participate, like, could have had, you know? And she told me, she was like, Caroline, first of all, she's a psychology professor, so she's probably one of the more open-minded people like on the earth, you know. So she's like so kind about alcoholism, and but she was like, Caroline, I've had people just decide not to do the internship anymore. Nobody's ever come to me and said anything like that before, you know. And I thought, like, oh, what a cool thing, like what a cool thing to be able to experience with another human, and just felt so accepted by her. It's cool to be able to go back and like make amends for that, you know, because I really like, and to be able to share with her too that like the professors in that internship, like I still today, like I think professors are so cool. Like I think they're some of the most interesting people. Like they're always learning, they're always researching, they've got something they're really excited about, like whatever their subject is. Like I think they're really cool people, and these people were excited about subjects like I wanted to study, and I wanted to do right by them, you know. And I got to share that with her, that it's like, you know, like I really like, I think you're an amazing person, like, and I think what you do is really cool, and like I want you to know that I really wanted to do right by you and I just couldn't, you know. Like I really feel good about that. Like I feel really good about being able to share that with another human being. It's beautiful. And I have to talk to, there were 2 professors involved in that, so I still have to talk to the other one, because she was in Botswana doing public health, because they're cool people, you know? Like, they're really cool, they're always doing amazing things. Like, I'm excited to have a conversation with her, too. So anyway, right, so I'm having these real consequences as a result of my drinking, and like, even after that, like, that mattered to me. Like, what I want to share with you is, like, the stuff that I'm, like, losing, right, and the consequences that I'm having, like, they matter to me. Like, I don't want to be having them, but I don't want to stop drinking, right? Like I'm not, like after that I'm like, well, I just got to figure out how to drink better. You know what I mean? It's like I wasn't willing to not. And it really, my experience is I wasn't willing to stop drinking until that last bender that I had, right, where I was drunk for 9 months. You know, I graduated from college, like barely, not for nothing. Like I got a degree from college, but like, like I really don't know how it was bad. Like my grades were going down fast because like I couldn't exist. Like I was really having a hard time. I was just drinking. And I go back home to live with my parents, and I remember this drink that I took, and the bender probably started beforehand because I might have been drunk when I took it, but I thought at the time that I was hungover. You know, I was like, oh, I'm just really hungover, so I'm just gonna have you know, like a drink or 2 or 3 to like ease this hangover a little bit, and like I won't be sick. And I thought it was a really good idea. Like I really did. I was like, this is like, I don't know why all my friends don't do this, because then we would never be hungover, and like we'll just kind of ease our way into sobriety or whatever. And by drinking, isn't that funny? Like that's like the way my mind works. It's like I'll ease my way sober, but I just need a couple drinks, like, you know. So I remember taking those drinks, and I literally stayed drunk for 9 months. Right? Like I have a physical reaction to alcohol. It's described in our book as an allergy, right? And an allergy, you know, by definition is just an abnormal reaction, right? And I have that abnormal reaction to alcohol, and like it's so powerful for me, right? That like it has nothing to do with whether I want to be sober or not. You know, I have pretty bad seasonal allergies. Like I've just started to get like allergy shots at the allergist and stuff. Like they're pretty severe. Like I'm allergic to like grass and trees and mold and like everything outside, you know. And so I have allergies, right? And I have abnormal reactions to grass. So like if I were to go and sit on like a, you know, field of grass and wear shorts or whatever, like my legs would get like really itchy and red, right? And if I were to like touch my face, then my eyes are gonna be watering, and my nose is gonna be really stuffy, and my throat might get scratchy, right? Like I have an abnormal reaction to grass, like where somebody who is like not allergic to grass is just gonna sit on grass, right? And they're not gonna break out in a rash. Right, like, and I share that with you because I would never go sit on grass and with shorts on and then just try really hard not to get itchy. Right? It's like cutting myself and be like, oh, stop bleeding. Like I just can't. Like I can't. Right? It's like it's a physical reaction. Right? And that's what it's like for me when I take that drink. Like, and I you know, the mind is so powerful. Like it'll convince me that like I'm changing my mind. Like, oh, you just changed your mind, Caroline. Like, no, I didn't change my mind. Like about like whether or not I wanted to do that internship. You know, like I couldn't do anything but not drink because I have a physical allergy to alcohol. And if that was the extent of my problem, I shouldn't need to be in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Because the solution to the allergy is just to not drink. Right? Just don't drink. If you don't have one, we won't go on a spree, right? That's very, you know, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense, right? If I don't want to, if I want to avoid this physical allergy, all I have to do is not put alcohol in my body. You know, and my experience shows me that, like, I have no power over that either, right? And, you know, I guess I just keep going back to that internship as an example, but, like, I knew, right? I knew by then that once I started, I couldn't stop. That, like, it was going to be on and probably last a couple days, because that's about how long they were lasting at the time. You know, I knew that was going to happen, right? So, like, why is it that I can't just stay sober for 3 days, right? That I can't just not drink for a couple more days, because I know that once I start, I can't stop, right? And it's, for me, in my experience and how I understand alcoholism, is that I'm really powerless over alcohol, right? And what that means is, like, it's not that once I start, I can't stop. Like, if that's part of it, sure, that's definitely a big part of it. But it's that I have no power over staying stopped. I have no power to keep myself sober. Right? Because, like, why is it from a sober state of mind that I would put another drink in my body, like, knowing what happens to me when I drink, knowing that I have things that I want to show up for that really matter to me? Completely powerless over alcohol. And my experience is that, you know, whether I want to be sober or not has really nothing to do with it. You know, in my experience with sponsorship and sponsoring other people, oftentimes, like, sponsees will say, like, you know, they're not doing this, they're not writing their inventory, but don't worry, I don't want to drink. You know, and it's like, since when is that anything to do with this? You know what I mean? Like, if all we have to do is just not want to drink, like, I say this, like, really kindly, like, from the bottom of my heart, like, if all you have to do is not want to drink to stay sober, like, I don't need to be an Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Like, this is the bottom of the barrel group of people here, right? Where it's like, where you've tried really, really hard with everything that I have to not drink, and I'm still drunk. What the heck, right? And, like, I thought that I was absolutely crazy because I really, really wanted to be sober, and I couldn't seem to do it. It's just continuing to drink, and I arrived in that psych ward, like I told you about, and you know, sat in that meeting that I didn't make a decision to attend, and I heard a woman share about her alcoholism. I really heard her talk about her drinking. It was like the only thing I could hear at the time was her talking about, like, hiding her bottles. You know, she said she never needed anyone to know, like, where her stash was, and I'm like, get it, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I totally get that. And she hid her empties too, right? And, like, oh my gosh, did you guys used to do this? Like, I used to drive to, like, different dumpsters within, like, a mile radius, you know what I mean, to, like, dispose of the bottles. Like, nobody needs to know, right? No one needs to know how much I'm drinking. It's, like, intuitive for alcoholics. Like, nobody shares that stuff with us. We just, like, do it, you know, and then we come here, I'm like, oh my God, you did that too, right? And, like, I had never heard anybody be so honest about their drinking, because, like, I was literally gonna kill myself before I said any of that stuff out loud, you know? It's, like, my really deep, I mean, those aren't the deepest secrets I had, but, like, they were up there. Like the way that I was living was, like, so shameful. Like, I knew I couldn't possibly say it out loud, because I didn't want to get the look of, like, what the heck, you know? And this woman was just sharing it like it was nothing, you know? Like, it held no weight over her anymore. Like, it had no power over her. And, like, I could not produce the words. Like, I could not tell you with any truth, like, what was going on with me during that time. Like, I tried, like, versions of it. Like, I would tell my mom that I was, like, depressed and stuff, but, like, I didn't tell her about the drinking. And I don't know, like I wonder, like, part of me, like, maybe I wanted to protect the drink, but, like, I also really believed that, like, there was no way that someone like me was ever going to be sober, you know? Because I really did, like, I was tired. Like, I was really tired. I didn't want to keep doing it anymore, and I was using the tools that I had. Like, I was, you know, I was going to a therapist, and I was seeing the, like, doctors. I was trying to heed advice from those doctors to, like, I remember, like, I would literally, like, go to these Pilates classes, but, like, drunk, you know? If you guys have ever done Pilates, like, there's a lot of balance involved, you know? Like, it was really difficult. Like, I remember, like, oh my God, I could not balance. I was drunk, you know? But I'm, like, trying, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, like, I'm really trying to do this stuff, and I'm still drunk, you know? And, suicidal and whatever, and I get push through these institutions, starting with that psychiatric hospital that I unwillingly didn't want to go to, and then they said, go to rehab. I said, no, thank you, and somehow ended up there anyway. And then from the rehab, they were like, why don't you go to the sober house now again? I was like, no. And they were like, I just kept going. Like, my mom reminded me of this like a couple months ago that, you know, I really like in my mind, like I remember being in all this pain, right? So much pain from the drinking, and I think the truth is, like, truly, like, met with the 12 steps, like, I did it pretty willingly, and I did it. Like, I guess that's all that really matters, is like I did the work, and I did it relatively timely, you know, in the way that it was laid out to me. But my mom likes to remind me that, like, I wasn't so difficult, like, in my first months and year of sobriety, of just, like, she was just trying to give me all these resources, and I was living at home with mom and dad, and I just wanted to go back home with them, because I'm afraid of everything new. I'm afraid to go to rehab. Like, I'm afraid to go to live at the sober house with these women that I don't know. Like, I'm afraid of anything that I don't know, which is when you're sober, like, everything, right? Everything is a new experience when you're sober, and I just wanted to be at home, and, you know, I had just tried to take my own life in my parents' house, and they were so scared. They were like, absolutely not, right? Like, we need you in a safe environment, and you know, those places, like, I don't want to knock anything like that, because I'll just say this, like, I didn't learn anything in rehab that's, like, still relevant for me right now. You know what I mean? What they did do for me, though, was encourage me to live a 12-step life, right? They encouraged me to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. They encouraged me to get a sponsor, and they encouraged me to work the 12 steps. Right? There's a reason that, like, if you're in one of those places right now, like, there's a reason that they're pushing you to us, right? Because my experience is, like, if you relate to some of the things that I've shared tonight, or you think, it's like, if you think you might be an alcoholic, like, it's possible that they don't have the long-term solution for you there. Right, like, otherwise they wouldn't be sending you here, right? They'd be giving you what you need and then sending you on your way. But that's not what's going on, right? Because I need the tools to stay sober. And I did, like, I did what my sponsor asked of me, and she didn't ask me to do anything that wasn't in this book. But what we did together was we met and we would read some of it, and, you know, when it got to, like, an action, when it wanted me to do something, she would share with me what it was like when she did it, and then I would do it, you know. And the reason that I was willing to do any of that stuff was, like, because of her, right? And not because she's, like, a special alcoholic, like, because she wasn't alcoholic at all. Like, that was literally the only reason why I was willing to do anything that she said. Because, like, I was not an obedient, like, I guess I'm a natural rule follower. I know that's not a common experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I kind of am. Like, I take a lot of comfort in, like, being the best, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be the best one in rehab, and, like, follow all the rules, and I want everyone to like me there the best, because I'm, you know, whatever. Whatever. So but I'm also, like, I struggle with, like, authority at the same time. I don't know. So I met with this woman who becomes my sponsor, and, like, I'm willing to do what she suggests, because, like, I just know in my heart that she gets it, you know. And, like, that's how we are here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I wasn't able to get better with the psychiatrist. I wasn't able to get well with the therapist, or wasn't able to get well by the counsel of my mother, you know, or my friends, or by living a, you know, healthier lifestyle. Like, none of those things were able to help me get sober, right? And it wasn't until, like, I sat down with this woman who suffered from what I suffered from. She'd had an experience with these 12 steps, and she was willing to take me through it, that I was able to get well, you know, like, and maintain, like, sobriety for 6 years, which is, like, a really big deal. Like, if any of you guys are sober in here, like, that's a really big deal for us. You know, that's not, like, that, we're, like, I suffer from alcoholism. Like, I don't, like, it just kind of blows me away that, like, this is a real gift here, what we have. If you're anything like me, like, my story, like, shows that, like, I'm the kind of alcoholic that, like, I go to institutions, you know. I am a danger to myself. I'm a danger to others, because I left out the part of my story where I got arrested for driving drunk, like I did every day for 9 months, and you know, I'm a danger to society, right? Like, I'm not, like, the kind thing to do for someone like me, like, apart from Alcoholics Anonymous, is to put me in a lifelong institution, I might be able to stay sober there, maybe, right? But I would have literally no freedom. I might, be going in a padded room every now and then. Like, I don't, like, that's really like the trajectory for someone like me. My experience with step one, I think sometimes, like, when I was new, it really felt like everybody in my life was trying to convince me to get sober and convince me that I had a problem. Like my mom and the doctors and whoever was still in my life. There weren't very many by the end of my drinking, but I felt like they were all just kind of pulling at me to like convince me that I was an alcoholic, and that doesn't work for me, right? And it wasn't until Alcoholics Anonymous that like my sponsor was like, well, let me just tell you like, what it looks like in me. And I think what I thought about myself at the time, and like what I hear in a lot of newcomers is like, oh no, I know I can't drink, right? It's like, I know that I can't. And I knew that too, right? Like I knew I couldn't drink, and still was drinking, right? But like understanding like the depths of my alcoholism, like if I truly had like a step one experience, it's not the understanding that like I can't drink, like it's the understanding that I will drink again. Right, and whether I want to or not, right, it doesn't have anything to do with it. And there's not a lot of hope there, is there? Like in step one, it's really like this, there's no hope. You're powerless over alcohol, your life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over alcohol once I put it in my body, powerless over alcohol when I'm sober. I'm like, ooh, that's a really bad spot to be, And, my first sponsor, like laid out that, we talked about what it was like. I don't know. She gave me the language to be able to talk about what it was like for me drinking, right? That like alcohol completely relieved me of like all of that fear and the loneliness and the disconnectedness and the the anxiousness and the emptiness, like all the things I'm feeling in my sobriety. And she just pointed out that like I needed a new power, and that I had to be convinced. Like she wasn't trying to tell me like, oh, it can't be alcohol anymore, Caroline. Like alcohol's not working. She didn't say any of that. I was convinced, right, that alcohol couldn't work for me, right? Like I really wanted to be sober, right? But I didn't think that there was like a possibility where like I could live like sober and be reasonably all right in my own skin, because all of my experiences with sobriety were just so painful and like agitated, just like really uptight and agitated and afraid, like that was my experience with sobriety, and I didn't know that there was any other way to live. And so she pointed out to me that like I needed a new power. Right, and I knew that power couldn't be alcohol, and that's when she outlined these 12 steps, right? And like I said, like they're not like it says in our book that they're very simple, right? This is a very simple concept, right? Powerless over alcohol, like need a new power. Like doesn't get much more simpler than that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me, but it's really not easy, right? Like it's simple but not easy, because it requires me to live a life of honesty. Right? And that doesn't come naturally to me. But I've been transformed into this person that like the coolest thing, like one of the coolest things that I have going on today is like I have this ability to be totally honest with my sponsor, about like the thoughts going on in my head. Even if I know, like when you get to know somebody, you kind of know how they might feel about something. Like I'm able to be honest with her, even if I think she's not going to approve of whatever I'm about to say, That's a really, really difficult thing for someone like me. You know how I told you I want everybody to like me all the time. I need to agree with you even if I don't agree. Right? And I've been transformed into this person that can tell the truth. Right? I'm required to go out and make amends of where I've caused harm. Like that's probably like the scariest thing that we do here. Right? Is like look people in the eye and tell them how we've harmed them. And then how we intend to make it right, and listening to them on what they think we should do. That's been one of the most remarkable things I've ever been able to participate in here. Right? It's really why I have these vulnerable friendships with my home group members. It's like I was able to look some of those people in the eye and just like tell them the truth. I was so consumed with like jealousy and competition, and like I had these like really like unspiritual thoughts, right, about like the people that I loved in my home group. right? Because I would compare myself to them, and I'd be like, I should have just as many sponsees as her, right? Why does she have more sponsees than me? They look better than me. They're more popular than me. Like, my mind, you know, it is a wild place to be. But to be able to, like, share those things, like, with these, you know, with these people that I love, and, like, the friendships that we've had since have been just so beautiful. You know, and I just want to just end with this, like, alcoholism as I see it, and really this, like, just 12 steps, like, in Alcoholics Anonymous is sort of like, no, it's just alcoholism. Yeah, alcoholism is like this double-edged sword, I think, that, you know, I would never do these 12 steps if my life didn't depend on it. Like, let me be clear, right? Because it's so hard, right? And I told you, I feel like I'm gonna die. I don't think I shared this with you, but like, I literally feel like I might die, like, when I make a difficult amend. Like, my whole, like, I have, like, probably what doctors could diagnose as a panic attack. Like, my hands go numb, feels like my heart's gonna, like, burst out of my chest. Like, I'm not all right, right? And I somehow, like, my feet, like, and my legs, like, walk into this amend, and I'm like, I don't even know how I got here, right? Because I'm just, like, you know, not numb, not present in my body. And, like, I make this amend, and I emerge from it, like, with so much more freedom, you know? So it's like this double-edged sword of, like, I would never in my life do any of this incredibly difficult stuff, right? Unless I was an alcoholic and there was this looming threat of a drink over my head, you know? But it's only because of my alcoholism, right? And because if I don't live this spiritual way of life, that if I don't, I might drink again, that, like, I'm able to live a life of, like, real freedom. You know, I live with so much more emotional freedom than I think a lot of my peers do, because I'm forced to. And I get to reap the benefits of that too. So, thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me share.
Let's have another round of applause for Carolyn.